Hello, people. This is the first podcast in English that I'm recording. Probably you know me from the other videos I used to do on Twitch, where I interviewed different people from the game industry, but most of the interview were in Portuguese, and a lot of people always request me, "Hey, do you have this content in English?" And now I'm starting a podcast that will be completely in English with people from the game industry. And today we are here with Antonio, that works at Sumo Digital, and we will talk about working on this industry, right? And especially here in London, we are both from Brazil and currently living here in UK. So Antonio, tell more about you. About your journey.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Vicky, for inviting me for the first episode of the podcast. So, I am a senior concept artist at Sumo Digital at the moment. I started studying art, or I started studying drawing and painting back in 2014 when I was in Brazil. And over time, I started improving, getting better jobs, and I moved here to the UK in April 2023. I still study a lot. I still work hard on improving my concept designs, my drawings, my paintings. But that's the thing that brought me here, and that's the thing I still enjoy, and I'm still doing and improving at.
Amazing. So we were talking before about how the company made for you to work here.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell how it was, how the company helps you to move to UK?
Yeah, so they sponsored everything. I had some experience before working during the pandemic. I was working home office for different studios in Brazil, and last year before moving here, so 2021, 2022, I was a senior concept artist at Coco Games, which is probably one of the biggest in Brazil for outsource in games, for at least like AAA games, I think. And I had applied before joining them. I had applied to different studios, and one of them was Sumo Digital and the Atom Hawk from Vancouver, so Canada. And I was 1 year working at Coco Games. I was not looking for different studios, and I randomly got like 2 offers, one for Wargaming and one for Sumo from the time I had applied before. And I was already, as I said, like working in home office, and I felt like really stuck in a way. I felt like I had no contact with people. I felt comfortable, like I was making some good money. I was improving my art. I was studying, but I really felt the need, if I wanted to be a part of bigger projects, of AAA projects, and know how it feels more to be from the start to developing a game from zero, that I needed to be working in-house somewhere outside Brazil. And I did the art test for both of these studios, Wargaming and Sumo Digital. And I was very skeptical because I had done art tests before. I did interviews for Splash Damage here in London. And I did almost like 3-month interview with them, like very long process. And I did the art test. They were very happy until like the last stages, and they went for someone different. And I was very skeptical, like, oh, I'm going to try this, but I'm working at Coco. This is not going to happen. And both Wargaming and Sumo made the offer at the same week, like the same exact week. Like Monday, Wargaming made the offer. Friday, Sumo Digital made the offer. And then I used the offer I got to Wargaming to get a better offer at Sumo. And then Sumo like made better offer. I was like, okay, I'm going to move for Sumo. So April, it was the time when I made the move. January, they made me the offer. Then they paid for the visa process. They paid for relocation and everything. And also like 1 month of a flat that I was living near the studio in Nottingham. And yeah, like in those months it was like packing, organizing everything, organizing like documents I would need for the visa stuff, and then moving here. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Mm.
That's one thing that I love about the game industry is the possibility to move to other countries with everything paid for the company.
Yeah.
You don't have to stress. You don't have to try to get a visa by yourself. They give you support in all the process, and also they even pay people from how can I say law, right? To see the documents, to see if everything's correct. So it's really interesting how the game industry invests on the professionals.
Yeah, I remember, just to complement that, I remember that when I started, so it was in 2014, I had the luck, or maybe it was something random, that in 2015 they were doing an art event in Curitiba. So it's a bit above where I live in Brazil. And I was like, it's my first year, I'm like very new at drawing and stuff, but I really want to go to that art event to see how concept art is, how the industry is. And I remember there I met Hugo Richard, and he is still like one of my favorite concept artists to this day. And I met that at that year he was moving to Volta in Canada to work there, and he worked there for many years, and he's still in Canada today. And I remember that being like one of these things that I was like, oh, it is possible for me. Like if I work hard, if I make a really good portfolio, at some point this can happen to me. So I was skeptical, but also I had this thing in my head that like at some point it will happen, you know. So yeah. It's a really cool thing that is a possibility.
One person that I'm really fan that I got inspiration from was Jama Jurabev. You know him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I met him. Yeah.
His work is amazing. And he lives in London, apparently. But yeah, at least his art station say that. Have you met someone that you really admire here in UK already?
Yeah, I met Jama. He's also like one of my favorite artists. And when I was in like self-teaching in Brazil, like studying and stuff, he was one of the main artists that made me get into 3D, because I started in a very 2D base, even like traditional drawing and painting. And he was the main guy that I looked at to see how can you mix 3D process, 2D process and painting, because he also comes from a very strong like 2D knowledge, like painting and drawing. He has a really strong foundation in that. And he now is like crazy 3D guy, like he uses a lot of 3D, but he also has this 2D foundation. So he was a great inspiration for me. I met him like last month in Concept 101, and I met him also last year there. And these events that happen here in London are like something really cool, right? Like it's something very rare in Brazil to have like these many artists and many workshops, talks, and opportunities to meet people that you admire. So I met Jama there. I met John Harris, which is like one of my favorite sci-fi painters. He's really old school, like old master painter. And a bunch of like other artists, and Gael Seguillon, Pablo Carpio, which is another Pablo Carpio, and Pablo Dominguez, which are another of these concept artists that mix 3D and 2D. But yeah, like even people in the studio, like meeting artists that you never heard before, but you look at them, you're like, damn, guy or girl, like this girl sits by my side and her work is amazing. And every day I'm like on lunch break, I see her sketchbook, and that's like so inspiring. So just that is really worth it for me, having moved here, you know, and seeing like people that are better than me. I'm like, oh, I need to study more, I need to improve more.
Yeah. And what do you think on your portfolio catch the attention of these studios?
I know that for this job at Sumo, it was the fact that I had sci-fi stuff, and I really like, at the time, like I was really doing retrofuturism, and it happened that the project I joined at the time was more sci-fi inspired, and it was using that retrofuturism language. So if you go through my portfolio, you see that I am more of a generalist, concept art generalist. So I do characters, vehicles, environments, creatures. But my vehicles and the characters I was doing at the time, so I almost have like a role of like retrofuturism, and it was the time they saw my portfolio. But I really think the fact that I am a generalist, the fact that I have some other stuff there, also helped because the project I'm working at the moment is completely different from when I joined. So I think they saw, oh, he's a good fit for the project we're doing now, but after this project is done, he will still be useful for the other projects, you know. And also the fact that I have the things that are recommended for any concept art portfolio, right? So when I was self-teaching, the first years were the hardest because I really had no idea what's the most important thing in a concept art portfolio.
Mm.
And that is showing the design development of wherever is the subject you are designing, right? So it doesn't matter if you're designing a character, a vehicle, environment of or a creature. The design process, the design methodology is the most important thing for a concept art.
Yeah.
So what are your references? How or what kind of ideas and thumbnails are you sketching, you're drawing, you're exploring? How many different ideas are you showcasing in your portfolio? So an art director can look and pick up and give you feedback or mix and match those ideas, right? And so I had that, and I think that's the base, like that's the foundation for a concept art. And then after that is like how well you render, how well your drawing foundation is, how well your painting skill is, right?
Yes.
That is more variable, but the design thing, the design foundation, I think is still something I value because of how important it is in a concept art portfolio.
Yes, I think the design is the most important. Yeah.
Mm.
I got in touch with you for the first time because I was at Equinox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember?
Mm.
And they were looking for someone to design tanks because of that game that I worked with then, Turbo Tanks. So your style, I remember that they really loved your style, and I sent you a message, hey, are you available? At the time you were still in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember seeing your designs, seeing your process, and there are another artist that were more close to what we are looking for, because at the time we had one direction, and what were interesting about his work were exactly the design, the sketches that he made. The final pieces, we weren't looking to that. We were looking to the designs, the sketches, and how he explored the ideas. And his style were very close to the game. So we decided to hire these. He's Brazilian as well. Yeah. You know, guys, sometimes this happens. It's not because you are not good. He is amazing. But when I recommend him on the studio I used to work in Manchester, there were another guy who suits best the game we are creating. So that's why. And it's all you say, like, the design, the sketch, how you present the process, how you can explain each steps of what you created. And was really nice to work with him because he made all this and he had all of this that you mentioned on the portfolio as well, and you also had.
Yeah, but that's the, like, it's normal, right? And that's the thing I was telling you about, like, when I was doing other interviews. Like, I was already in a studio, like, I had my safe job, let's say, but also I know how you need to have a tough skin, because you're going to invest, or you're going to have, like, oh, here is a job offer or something. You need to kind of try it, you know, like, don't ignore it, but try thinking, like, someone who is a better fit may get that job, you know?
Yes.
And even this job I got at Sumo, like, I met other people that were applying and were doing the art test for the same job I got. And it just happened that my style this time was a better fit, right? So it doesn't mean you're bad at art. It doesn't mean your style is bad at some, you know? Like, if you are studying, if you are improving, at some point, that fit will happen, you know? That match between you and the studio will happen. From my experience, the first one is the hardest. Like, the first job in the industry is by far the hardest, because you have no experience, right? So your portfolio needs to be really good, and you really need to be a perfect match for that job. And as you get more experience, as you have more, let's say, a better CV, right? It's easier to go to different jobs, because then you are like, this guy is not a perfect match, but he's really experienced, and we can see he work in lots of different IPs, lots of different famous games. So we are sure that he can adapt and be a good match. But if you have like few experiences, they'll be like, he's not a perfect match, this one is best. So yeah, it's part of it.
Yeah, and sometimes the project will dictate it. So you can look at, for example, Sumo portfolio has different styles of games. And you think, oh, if I apply, I have like a stylized style. If I apply, I may get the job because they have a lot of games that has my style. But the thing is, they are probably looking for someone for another project that has a completely different style.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a matter of timing as well, right? Yeah. For example, I had a similar experience. I applied at Hello Games. And I went to the full process to work at No Man's Sky. You know, No Man's Sky? I love this game. Yeah. I really love this game. And to the end, I didn't get the opportunity to work with them. But yeah, it was a long process, more than 2 months, I think. I did all the interview process. I did the art test, everything. They liked me. They gave compliments, but still, it didn't work out. Yeah, I got so sad.
It's like, painful, oh yeah. But you kind of need to like, you're gonna, pick up things again, and yeah. Because we are human beings, right? We say like, oh yeah, don't be like, be a little bit skeptical. Don't create like,
huge expectations.
Yeah, huge expectations. But you always I always have expectations also, right? And this thing really reminds me of that time when I was doing the Splash Damage one, because it's really similar thing. Like they were doing a sci-fi game. They are known by the sci-fi games, right? And I was like, I'm gonna move to London. I'm gonna work on a sci-fi game because like I love sci-fi stuff. And I was like, I remember I went on a call with them. It was like 3-hour call. I was talking to everyone on the team, and I was like, they are gonna hire me, right? Because they are putting so much time into this thing.
Yes.
And they were like, no, we found a better match too. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. Like I went in person to the studio in Guildford.
Oh.
Yeah, I talked with the guy. Oh, I forgot his name. But yeah, I went there. I met then in person. I saw the studio. Amazing. We talked for more than 1 hour. It was a long conversation. Was really interesting, and I thought it will work, but no. And how was your first interview for the game industry? You got nervous? You think you were bad? Like you started working at Koku or was another studio?
No, I did work for games as freelance before joining a studio, so I think that kind of eased me into it, Like my really first in-house, I worked in that studio for like around 8 months, and it was a Brazilian studio, and they were doing a partnership with a French studio called Shiro Games, so Minimal Games and Shiro. Shiro, they are working on the Dune game. I think it's Dune Awakening or something like that. And I didn't feel nervous because I think I had that background of like freelance to back me up, So like my interview was like, I never worked in-house, but I did work on these projects for, these last 3 years. I was doing freelance for other studios. I was doing freelance for some films, like doing concept design for films. So that kind of got me into it. Like I was like, all right, like, I'm comfortable with this. Of course, you always get like a bit anxious, a bit nervous with everything. Even like this, recording this podcast, to get a bit like, I have butterflies in my belly. But I felt that helped, and it was a really fun experience. As I said before, like the first studio is the hardest. So I think I had applied to other studios, and my portfolio was not showing as much development and ideas and design principles that it shows now. So for the time, I think it was, I think it was pretty alright, like the whole process and working that first studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes back to an important thing that we were talking about matching studios, like about your work matching, and that you can't never tell, you can't control how well you're gonna match a studio or not, right?
Yes.
Because the studio could be doing like, oh, I'm gonna apply to Epic Games with Fortnite style because I want to work for Fortnite, let's say.
Yes.
But maybe they are doing a game completely different, and Fortnite, they already have their Fortnite artists.
Yes.
So if you're going to start tailoring your portfolio so much for a specific style or a direction, because you can't control that, it's a very bad thing in a way. So I think that one of the best things you can do is really trying to find a style that you enjoy or different styles that you enjoy.
Thank you.
And thank you. And I think that was my journey in a way, because I ended up being a generalist, or my portfolio is more a generalist, because I was going through this process of enjoying things and discovering things. So I was never like doing, oh, I'm gonna do a vehicle because I want to apply to this vehicle studio, or because the industry needs vehicles, or I'm not gonna do an environment because industry needs environment. I was doing because I wanted to enjoy and I wanted to improve as an artist, and I wanted to see how I would feel doing that. And if I felt bad like doing that, maybe I would not put in my portfolio. But because I really have this passion for drawing anything, it over time my portfolio turned into that generalist thing, and it turned to this style that some studios will find a better match and some studios will not want it, right? So because this is something that students ask a lot, right? About like, oh, should I tailor to the environment? Should I tailor to that? And I think it matches really well with what you're saying of what you're talking about, that you can control, and it's not worth it, right? Even if you can't control, I don't think it's worth it, because you can end up in a studio that you don't enjoy working then. Like, you're gonna be doing environments because the industry needs environments, but you are very unhappy doing environments, let's say, right?
Yes. We were talking before about nowadays I prefer managing teams than stay on the production, right? So I discovered it after a long time working on the production. So, but I started to notice that I wasn't happy. Like, I don't know. I love drawing. I love create things. But how can I say this? It's different when you direct. When you direct, you have these. You trust more on people, and you can, how can I say, you can focus in other stuff that also makes the project works, while other people are exploring designs and doing these kind of things, and you are the person in charge for the vision, for the final result. So when I started to manage a team, having a studio, and also mentoring people as well, I felt that, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. It's different because I always felt uncomfortable working with games somehow, like not because I didn't like, I loved, but something were missing. And after I started the studio, I noticed that, no, this is my thing. This managing teams, being a lead, organize the project, give ideas, plan the ideas, because idea without a plan is nothing. We need to plan. We need to talk with not only the artists but also with the programmers and animators, and I discover myself more in that side than the production side. And I was mentioned here about one of my friends that he works as a 3D artist, and he's a good communicator. And I told him, hey, you should try to, the direction, I don't know. And he, no, I don't want that. I don't want to deal with people. I prefer like sit here and sculpt and focus on the models. it's what make me happy than directing people. So, yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I see that experience from leads that I had and the ones I have now, and art directors also. And I I do want to try it at some point, like having this kind of role, but I always see them like always on a meeting, and you have to be
Yes.
on meetings with other departments, and you need to be receiving like, oh, I got this feedback from animation team or 3D modeling team, and you have to change this and this and this.
It's a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then
so
you have
many.
to do pitch presentations for the
Yes.
publishing, and like no, I just want to draw. I just want to paint and draw, and I want to press play on my music playlist, my song playlist, and I want to focus on design at the moment. Yeah, these
Yeah.
things change over time also.
Yeah, probably because you have
Mm.
experienced mentoring people, right? You
Mm.
were a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have the profile to do that. I think to be a lead, especially because you need to create a lot of presentations to present the ideas and everything you are developing with the team, you need to understand about selling as well, because a lot of these presentations that I do involves a lot of copywriting. So sometimes I'm not thinking about the project itself, but I'm thinking about how I will impress the people who will see the presentation. And I need to impress them with words, not only the art, not only the goal of the game, but with everything. I need to tell about sales, like, oh, this game has a good possibility to be a hit because of this and that, and I need to explain in a way that it will convince the people. So I noticed that I'm basically becoming a seller. Like I need to sell not only for potential investors or people who believe in our games, but also for the team. Because sometimes I have an idea that I think will look good or will work on the project, and I need to discuss to the team, and sometimes we don't agree. And then I need to know, wait, I will tell you why it will work, and you will do that. And then I start to sell the idea basically for the team, and they, yeah, that's true, yeah, and then they agree with me. So now that I'm in this position, I'm noticing that my communication is much more important than my art necessarily. I use my art nowadays just to sketch things, to present ideas, and use the communication to sell the ideas.
Mm. And if you think about it, even the art, like even concept art, you are still selling ideas,
Yes,
right?
exactly. It's communication.
Yeah.
Concept art is communicating visually.
Yeah. And you need to think of your portfolio as that, and also like your each piece as that, right? Because as you said, idea without the planning, without the execution. So you can have the coolest idea, or you can read a sci-fi book that has this crazy mechanism of crazy cool idea.
Yes.
But if you don't have like the foundation, you don't have like the design process to show, to sell properly this idea, like you're going to design it properly, you're going to
Yes.
represent it properly, paint it properly, put like a beautiful lighting on it. You're not selling, and no one is gonna like be inspired by it. No one is gonna be, oh, all right, I see what you mean. This is like the coolest thing I saw today. Like, let's do it. So you're always selling in a way, right? You're always selling in a way.
It was very interesting when I discovered that in the past. When I was younger, I dreamed about being concept artist. And then after a while, no, I want to be a 3D artist. And then after a while, no, I don't. I want to be something else. And now I discover myself as a manager, lead. So I noticed that what I was drawing was basically communicating something. And then I start to, okay, so yeah, I need to study, I need to improve, I need to do things that I like, but I need to create a narrative. So I start to thinking in characters with narrative. because sometimes when you're an artist, you just want to do whatever comes to your mind. But when you realize, no, my work is actually communicating, it means that I need to think more on this character than just creating a random character. And then I start to, okay, let's say I'm creating a character for a fantasy world that has elves, orcs, I don't know. What's it is the context? These characters need weapons or no? What kind of weapons? What I'm trying to communicate? What is his personality? So that's why he smiles, or that's why he is sad. I don't know. Like I start to think the reasons behind what I was doing, and then I noticed the importance of my job, because when I just start working with drawing, I had some doubts, like what is the relevance of what I'm doing? I'm just doing nice drawings, nice looks. I don't know, you know. And then I realized the importance of the narrative behind it.
Yeah, like that's the main. I think that's one of the main ways of thinking that you can have when you are approaching like 3D art and 2D art, right?
Yes.
In games, because if you are doing like 3D art, you can think, okay, I'm modeling this, and this is going to be in game, you know, like people are actually going to see this 3D model, and it's going to be the character there or the environment there. And in 2D art, if you're talking about concept art, no one is gonna see what you're doing, right?
Yes.
Like the artists in the game are gonna see what you're doing, but the player never actually sees your drawing itself. They see the idea, they see the composition, they see all the things you researched, or that mechanism you invented for a joint or something. But the drawing itself, you know, they probably gonna see in an art book if you're, you know, if you're lucky for your drawing to be in an art book.
Yes.
So you're always like, why am I drawing this? You know, like no, this drawing, you can very easily think that you're drawing something to be pretty, or that your work is useless because no one sees it, right?
Yes.
And then you need to think like, what is the value? Like, what is the value of a concept artist? Why do concept artists exist, right?
Yes.
So they exist because they must be doing something that helps the game.
Yes.
And that main thing is, right, storytelling, art direction, design language, functionality of things, aesthetic of things, even how something is built, or culture research. So all of those things are the backbone, right, are the foundation of design, and why concept art is important in a pipeline, in a game pipeline. And that is more abstract in a way, right? So it's easier to visualize, like, all right, I'm gonna be a 3D artist, and all right, these are the things I need to improve on, these are the tools I need to learn. So I need to learn Blender, or I need to learn Maya, wherever studio is using or the industry is using. I need to learn Substance Painter or ZBrush. And concept art, you are like, I could use any tool. I could use Photoshop, but I also could use whatever other software exists, like to draw and paint, Clip Studio Paint, Krita, whatever. Because what matters is all of these research and ideas behind, right?
Yes.
And how do you make a good research? How do you make a good idea? How do you make a good art direction? It's very abstract, right? It's a bit like, I need to try it and see what happens. I need to maybe see what other art directors are doing, what other projects and games are doing, and maybe try my own thing, maybe find my own style, maybe find the styles I like, and then over time, like studying, maybe I will get better, and then, you know, so it's more abstract, and I think it's more frustrating. 3D and 2D are both really hard to get into the industry, like they both require time. But in my mind, at least that was my experience, and like talking with friends and other artists, 2D, the concept art side is more frustrating because it's a more abstract, some things. There is not like a clear path of like, learn these tools and learn, you know. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think concept art compared to 3D is harder, because 3D, you have steps to follow. So, for example, one area of 3D, let's say character artist, usually the character artist will receive a concept already approved from the art director, and they will create that concept in 3D. Of course, it involves a lot of creativity because there are some designs that you see on 2D that is really hard to replicate to 3D. So you need to understand, okay, I need to understand a little bit of design to be able, let's say the concept artist didn't draw the back of the character. You only have the front. So you need to be creative to understand how the details you need to put on the back, right? But at the end, you still have a guide ready for you. That is the concept for you to replicate on 3D and solve the technical problems. Like maybe you have a number of polygons that you need to follow. You can't do more than, let's say, 30K, and you need to think on these technical challenges. You need to do a retopology in a center way because the animator will need it in the center way, or because of the engine. There's several reasons that you need to adapt the way you do your 3D work, but there is the steps. And the technical side, it's a bit easier to follow these steps. But the creative side is really challenging. And concept art is really abstract, like as you say. Usually the concept artists, they need to be able to draw a lot of ideas very quickly and at once. And one thing that I notice a lot, that people who usually don't get successful on this area, like as a concept artist, as a 2D artist, is they get attached to the art. So you can't be that way. You can't be attached to your drawings, to your art style, to the things you like to draw. You need to be very
Attached?
it's attached. You need to be this way so you can improve as a concept artist. If you don't learn this, you won't be a concept artist. Yeah, it's how I see things.
Yeah, like it also is a valuable lesson for 3D artists in a way, because I think if you are too precious about anything, like if you try to be too perfectionistic,
Yes.
about anything, you won't move forward, right? You spend like too much time on unnecessary things, and concept art is that to the extreme, in the sense that if you only do one idea and you render that idea to, from start to finish, or you get too attached to that idea, or even to one drawing, or you're just not exploring enough, you're just not open to other different ideas or possible solutions, your portfolio will show that you are a very like, oh, I have this idea and then I polish and I don't explore enough. And even with, again, like seeing student work, you can tell them like, design me, let's do a fictional project. I want you to design me a character that mixes Fortnite style with Overwatch style or Valorant style. So I want a mix of these two art styles, and this character is going to be a ranger, or is going to be like a sniper type of character. And cool, let's do 10 thumbnails exploring this idea. They are gonna do, like usually a student will do 10 thumbnails, like 10 different sketches that are very similar. Like the silhouette is similar, the shapes are kind of similar, the objects that they are using are kind of similar. And as an art director, like an art director can look at that and tell that you are just doing small variations. And if you're doing small variations, you are skipping like a huge step in design process, right? Which is, first you need to be very open, and you need to be very, again, disattached and not caring. Like you need to be like exploring wherever, like brainstorming wherever comes to mind. So one character maybe uses like a very long rifle and he has like a huge wolf that helps him run or something. The other maybe has an eagle and he has like a helmet with, you know, massive goggles that help him see far away. The other maybe, you know, uses a different kind, like a different silhouette of rifle, or he uses something that attaches to the floor. Maybe he has like some special legs that make him jump high. So you are exploring from the get-go, like some really different, right?
Exactly.
And that is really valuable in learning, because if you are exploring different things, you are also learning things that you like and you don't like, and you see what ideas are the bad ones, right? And as you get seeing like, all right, this idea is a bad one, or I didn't like this, why didn't I did not like this, right? What are the bad solutions? And then it goes back to that abstract thing of like, all right, I need to try a bunch of things, and a lot of them are going to be bad. Like art directors know that your ideas, 80% or 90% of them are going to be bad.
Yes.
And then you filter like the good ones, or you get like a bit of good idea of this, a bit of a good idea of this, mix and match, and then you build like the best idea, or the best idea possible from these tiny good ones that you are developing throughout the process.
Yeah, which means you need to deal very well with feedback.
Yeah.
This is something that I observed, is that I think it's harder to mentor people from 2D than 3D, because usually the 2D artists, they have these attachment that the 3D artist doesn't have. Since the 3D is more technical, they understand that there are some steps that it's necessary, you know, but 2D, they have this emotional attachment, and sometimes when you tell them, no, this is not good, no, this is not a good idea, they take personal. So it's really hard to tell a 2D artist that if they want to get into the industry, they can't draw whatever they think it's good for them. They need to draw everything without attachment and be receptive to criticism, because sometimes, depending on the day, the art director will look, hey, you are in a completely wrong direction of what we planned for the project. Then everything you did won't be used. And I noticed that some of the mentees I had from the 2D side, they had these kind of difficulties dealing with this.
Yeah, and it really is something, in a way, it's normal, because it's always like, again, we are human, and it's always painful, like seeing something that you care about, and something that it's hard not having an ego attached when you're talking about like personal, especially personal work, right? Or maybe something that you enjoy or you care about. But the main thing is understanding that in the end you're working for a product, right? A game is a product, and you are working to make that product the best as it can be, and to help in that production. So I think that helped me a lot from the start, understanding that and knowing that, yes, I enjoy like what I do, I love what I do. At the moment, I think I'm on my dream job, but there's gonna be moments that, as we were talking about, like limitations, we are gonna do, like, we are designing a creature or a character that has this really cool idea, and we spent 3 months drawing variations of that idea, and like I spent like hours figuring out the tiny things and making it look as cool as it can be. And they were like, no, we don't have budget for that, or that is too hard for, you know, at the moment we can do. And then you're like, what you gonna do, right? Like, all right, like I learned from this. They, at least like they let me develop this. It's not gonna happen. Like we need to solve this in a different way. And so that's in a professional environment. How do you do that in a personal work, right? Like how do you do that receiving advice from someone that is, let's say, more experienced than you, and that is telling you like, oh, let's explore this direction to see how it goes, or like maybe, you know, maybe having this super noisy character is amateurish, right? It's gonna show that you don't understand design principles.
Yes, exactly.
So let's try some variations where you clean some of these details, where you give him this character some rest area, where you improve this composition of details. And then you're gonna be like, but I spent hours adding these tons of details.
Exactly.
Like, how dare you tell me that I need to remove this? But it's like, yeah, it's gonna hurt at first, but you develop like this thick skin, and then you're like, all right, yeah, that's part of the process.
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in the beginning, I was a kind of attached to my art, my style. But then, since I started working in a indie studio, a small studio, and I had to be very generalist, my first project I had to design UI, basically. And I was like, oh my god, I joined this job because I wanted to work as an illustrator, and I'm doing UI. And I had to learn, like, for the project. At that moment, I didn't have time to study a little bit before I had to learn UI while working on the project. And I realized, okay, I'm a generalist. I will need to be open to do different things like that on the art side, to explore design in not only for characters or illustration, the kind of stuff that I was used to do, but instead, I need also to understand UI. I need to understand design for other technical things that will be implemented on the game, because I'm in an indie studio. The projects are different, and in each project they need me to do something different. So yeah, I had to remove this attachment that I had of my style, of, like when we start, we always have that.
Yeah.
You had that?
Yeah, so much. And also, like, I think I see also again from friends and other like coworkers and stuff that sometimes come when you are hoping, or let's say we have like this idealization or this expectation that the work is going to fulfill our personal needs, right? It's going to fulfill our personal work or our ego, let's say, like towards art. And I think the healthiest thing is still having your personal work after, right?
Exactly.
Even if it's like, sure, you're gonna be tired from work, you're gonna be tired from life, but even if you do 1 hour after work, or you do it on weekends on something that is truly yours, then you can be like more disattached again with professional work, right? Because I could be working on something, if it's something that you hate, it's something that you hate, right? But you could be working on something that you are neutral about. Like, I don't care much about, let's say, Fortnite. But if at some point in my career I need to do skins for Fortnite, or I need to design an environment for Fortnite, I still have my personal work at home, or like on weekends, and then I can explore something that is my style or my language and stuff. And then they could ask me for like 40 alterations on the Fortnite skin. And I'm gonna be fine. Like, it's my work, Like, I am still drawing, I'm still painting, I'm still improving at drawing and painting. And I have my fulfilling thing at home, and like I have my fulfilling thing after. So over time, it's another one of these things that it sounds super stressful, and it is, right? From the start, you are like, I don't want to do this, or it's too many different things, or I don't want to learn 3D because 3D is not drawing and painting. And then you're like, oh, that's a really cool tool. That's a really useful thing. And then you learn something from stylization, from indie style. You learn something about UI that is more graphic design. And then you're like, oh, these graphic design principles apply to an armor design, or they apply to something completely different. And then I think over time we become more flexible persons, right? At least it was for me. Like, when I started, I was like super strict. I'm like, I'm gonna draw and paint, and then I'm gonna work at this studio. And then reality happens, right? You're gonna get this indie studio. Like, when that first job I told you, the first in-house that first full-time studio I worked, it was a stylized game that they were doing. And I was like, my style was more realistic, but I was like, I'm open to it, like if you guys trust me to do it. I know that if I put the effort, I can do it, and you can put the effort, improve at it, and then you see like, do I like this? Do I not like this? And if you receive a better offer, you move on or you invest more into that. So it's also discovering the things you like, right?
And another thing that I think it's important for us to talk is people from our industry. We grew up like in front of PC, like playing games. Sometimes we don't have a healthy lifestyle. And one thing that I noticed, it's more personal about you, but you also draw and you do a lot of exercise, right? You take a lot of care about your personal life after work. And I think this is an amazing example because I see a lot of people of our industry, they spend like 10 hours in front of a PC because it's what we do. We need to stay there like modeling, drawing, whatever, all the time. And our kind of work, sometimes we need to keep thinking in the work after the work. So a lot of times I had to work at home, and not only because the project we had a strict deadline, but also because I was so involved in the project. I was so involved that I wanted to work more, and like my time on the studio ended that day, and then I went home. Okay, but I need to explore these ideas. I need to think on this or on that. And during a period of my life, I didn't have equilibrium, and I would like you to talk about this because you do exercise. I like seeing your social media. For me, it's like you are equilibrate things very well.
It definitely didn't start like that, like getting like this balanced. It's still something, it's still like an evolving process, like as anything is, right? But when I started in 2014, when I started to draw, it was actually like 10 years ago, right? It was also the time I started not going to the gym, but I started being more aware of things I eat because I was very overweight. And I was like 17, 18. I'm gonna be 28 in a week from now. And I think art and gym became connected in a way because it made me aware of how I spend my time. And it was also that time of life, like when you are 17, 18, you're graduating from school, you have more control of where you put your time towards, right?
Yes.
And I came from a family that we were not taking too much care of what we were eating. I am an anxious person, and food was the thing I would find comfort in. So I would be stressed about school or whatever thing in my life, and I would eat because I love food to this day, but I would eat to feel better. I would eat as an escape thing.
Yeah.
And just because I was doing that, not being careful, I put on weight like over the years. And I started drawing that year, and drawing was the thing that made me realize like I can make different choices in a way, and I don't know why that happened to me at that time, but it happened. And I was like, I decide that I want to work with concept art, and I want to dedicate my life to art. I also want to look for better choices I can make in my other areas of my life, like other lifestyle things. And I started like, what are the like best choices I can do with food? Like what other things can I see that I can use my time a little bit more efficient, let's say, like I'll be a little bit more clever about my choices, right? And then I started like, cool, I'm gonna go to a nutritionist, not sure if that's a word, but like just get like a meal plan, sort my meal plan on the week, like meal prep, some things that are more healthy. I started like leaning down at the same time my drawing was improving. I was like leaning down a bit, and 1 year after that I was like, cool, like I feel way better, like I'm leaner, I want to go to the gym just because, I want to feel better. Because to be honest, I think I was like more depressed and more like hopeless, let's say, because I was not sure if drawing was my thing. It was a very like anxious time of my life, and drawing and then taking care of my body made my mental health improve also, right? And I noticed that like I'm feeling better. I'm feeling happy that my drawing is improving. My drawing was still pretty bad, like 2014, 15. My drawing was pretty bad, but I was like, I'm on the right track, like I want to keep going. So I got this momentum going, and I'm gonna use this energy, this momentum I have, and keep making better choices. And the main thing, I still hold, like the main lesson, let's say, I learned from that time, was taking small steps. And I do that with my students, and I do that with myself to this day. So let's say I want to start drawing today, or I want to start going to the gym today. The thing is, like, get that smallest step, like the smallest thing you can do. That is like ridiculous small. So if my students on my Patreon page or my YouTube page, if you go to my classes, is like draw a box, rotate that box, start changing that box, right? Use that box to draw a cylinder, to draw a cup, and then you draw that cup in perspective. Now you can rotate that cup from imagination, right?
Yes.
So if you can draw a cup from imagination in different angles, now you can draw plants because the trunk is a cup, right? And then you can rotate the trunk. So now let's look at photo of a tree, of roots, and then let's imagine the cylinder rotating, and then we can draw the tree. And that small, ridiculous step of drawing a box that turns into a cup, and then you rotate in your brain, and then now you can draw something from imagination. It's something I would do with nutrition, right? So every day...
Small changes.
Yeah, small changes. So every day I would wake up, and then I'll have something that is like very fatty and sugar and stuff. So I would try to have something a bit different, instead of having like a whole bowl of cereal. My nutritionist was like, I have some fruit with milk, and instead of cereal and milk, I'll have like a banana with milk. And that's like a tiny difference, but you start your day feeling better, right?
Yes.
And then you're like, instead of having that, I had like some fruit. At lunch, what other healthier thing I could have? So instead of like going for fast food, I could still buy like a packaged meal or like a ready meal, but I'm gonna have like a chicken salad or like a chicken sandwich thing. And for snacking, instead of having like a chocolate thing, and that doesn't change in a day, right? There's small changes, they're gonna change from year and stuff. And again, to this day, I love food. Like I will eat, fatty things from restaurants. I will eat whatever. Like it's not even fatty things, right? Like I will eat things that I crave. Sugary things, chocolate things. I love all of that.
Yeah.
But I'll just be more aware. Like I'll be cool. I ate, I don't know, a chocolate bar because I was really craving it. Cool. Like I'll have something a bit smaller for dinner. Like I'll have like a chicken breast and salad. And if I don't have a chocolate bar for snacking, I'll have more potatoes. I'll have rice or have chicken pasta, whatever. So it's just balancing, and you learn over time, because that's where frustration comes from, right? The frustration comes from when you're like, I'm gonna change my life in a second. I'm gonna start drawing 10 hours a day, and I'm gonna go to the gym, and I'm gonna eat perfect. And no, you never, like, I don't do that, and you never, even in your first day, you won't do that. Like if you do that, you can't maintain, right?
Yeah.
So the small steps, and then building on that, be that for drawing, be that for gym, be it for dieting, be that for singing, whatever skill, right? And that way you build the confidence.
Yes.
So yeah.
I started with coffee. I was really addicted to coffee because I always worked too much, and I had the habit to draw after midnight. I don't know why. But since I was a kid, I never had good sleep, And because of that, I started drinking a lot of coffee on my 15. and was like a huge glass of coffee daily. And I was anxious, I wasn't sleeping well, and as a result, I wasn't studying that well as I thought I was. I would probably have improved way more if I had a better routine, but I didn't have, and was so unhealthy that I had a burnout because like a lot of coffee to keep awake, to stay like 12 hours in front of a PC working on freelance, and after finish the freelance go to study 3D and study, like keeping working on art all the time, and then the other day drinking coffee again to do all the same again, like going to the bed like 3 in the morning. I was having a really bad routine, and I noticed that a lot of artists do that because for me, I don't notice the time passing when I'm doing some art, and a lot of us are like that. And after I cut the coffee, I start with the coffee. I cut the coffee, I started sleeping better. After that, I started to learning better because my memory were working better. And then I improved faster on 3D. And a lot of people, when I tell them, no, I learned Blender really fast, they, well, how you do that? Because on that time, I take care of my routine, was the time I noticed that something were really bad. And my case wasn't the food, my case were the sleeping habits. The, like, forgetting the time to go to the bed, forgetting these kind of thing. And sleeping, when I went to the bed, I sleep like 6 hours, 5 hours. And who lives that way, And sometimes it reflected on food, but was more related to the sugar. I was drawing for a long period, and I loved eating chocolate while drawing. There's a lot of streams that I did that was like drawing, talking with the people on the stream, and eating chocolate all the time, because I needed sugar, because sugar is like caffeine somehow.
Yeah.
It gives you a little bit of boost.
And even the chocolate, like the cocoa, is like energetic.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And that's what my habits, and I studied 3D with these kind of habits was really bad. Nowadays I still sleep late, but I try to sleep at least 6 hours. Not like 5 hours, 3 hours as I did before. No, I consider sleeping the most important thing. I don't care that much about what I'm eating or what I would do during the day, but sleeping is the most important thing.
Same. Like, I think also these are things you notice, and then you're like, oh, I can't sustain this, or this is wrong, and then I need to come with a plan to solve it, right?
Yes.
And sleeping is the main one by far for like memory, for working on all of that. Like, it's crazy important, right? You can't function properly without it.
Yes.
And it's hard if you stop to think about it. It's really hard changing a habit, right? Because let's say sometimes you are sleeping less because you're drinking coffee, but you're drinking coffee because you need to work, and you need to work because you need money or something, right? You need or you need that experience, or you are working on something you don't like, and then you need to study extra hours to do what you want to do in the future. And then how do you balance these things, right? It's really hard. And some of these things are even deeper than that, like they are maybe psychological, right? Because yes. I still notice that with me. Like, I would be watching a class about something I want to learn. Like, let's say I want to improve at drawing better compositions, like better character compositions. Like, I want to improve at drawing like splash art style of illustration, let's say. And then I will learn something, or I will be drawing and I will learn something, or I will see someone telling me something, and it's something that I ignored for years. And I'm be like, oh my God, like, this is so helpful, but this is giving me anxiety because it's like out of my comfort zone, or it's just making me feel bad. Like, I thought I kind of knew this, or I thought I was going the right direction and I'm not. And then I feel anxious, and then when I feel anxious, I'm like, I need,
Yes.
like I need a coffee, or I need a chocolate, I need a dessert, and I will like stop. Like at that time, I would be like, fuck it, I'm gonna eat, tons of shit. But now I'm like, cool, do I really want that? Sometimes I'll do, like sometimes I'll get, like I have a chocolate bar in my backpack, and I'll get like a random square and I'll eat it.
I have chocolate biscuits
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
backpack.
So my room is full of chocolate bars because at some, like I learned to control myself and I'll take a bit.
Yeah.
But I need to stop and be like, why am so anxious? Like why is my body freaking out because I learned something new?
Yeah.
That is so weird. Like it's so weird. But then you're like, all right, this is me. Like this is my, let's say, child self, like my inner child, or whatever it is. Like maybe it's some trauma or something, or just the way my body is.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, all right. Like this was a really valuable thing I learned. Or maybe an artist gave you feedback that you were like, oh, fuck,
Yes.
And then you're like, okay, I need to calm down, like I will improve at this, I will study. Like, better to learn it later than never, right? And then you're like, cool, if I want the chocolate, I'll have a bit. And then, things go from there. But it's really, like, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And
I think we are very addicted to work. Yeah. Every artist I met are very addicted to work, to stay long hours in front of PC. And yeah, it affects us a lot, our habits, the way we eat, the way we sleep. There is a crazy friend of mine. He spent hours and hours in front of a PC, and he doesn't sleep, and he don't care. Like, I'm here, I have energy, I love sculpting. He's a 3D artist. I was like, oh my god, please sleep. Please. Yeah.
And that's how that comes to, like, how do you plan your life, right? Like, or how do you imagine your life? What does being successful mean to you, right? Because sure, you can be drawing, sculpting, 3D modeling 12 hours, 15 hours a day, or 18 hours a day, whatever. But, and sure, you're gonna get mileage from that. You're gonna improve.
Yes.
More than, it's not the best way to improve, but you're gonna improve. You're gonna see results from doing that. But is it the best thing? Like, because you're gonna be sacrificing
a lot.
And longevity also, right?
Yes.
So is it worth it, like being the best artist and then like not being able to move then because you hurt your hand, or your eyes are tired, or your body, like you're not happy with your body,
or you'll not spend time with your family,
friends, like social life,
yeah.
Maybe like dating,
Yeah.
So it's I think, like, remembering that you're gonna die at some point.
Yeah.
And you're not a machine, like you're not
an AI.
Yeah, you're not an AI, you're not a computer, you're not a slave to the game company, right? You're doing your work and you're doing the best you can. And they hired you for that. But in the end, you also have your life that is unique, right? You need to enjoy it also, right?
Yeah.
And the sleep thing also nowadays is really hard with, like, phone and everything, because you can turn, let's say you make a rule, I'm gonna turn my PC off at 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. so I can rest, so I can go to my bed and watch a movie or read a book. But then you have even your phone.
Yes.
And then if you're freelancing, you can have clients, you can even have someone, your art director, send you something. Even if you are not a freelancer, like I work in a studio, but you have, like, I can be searching for references in my phone.
Yes.
I can be watching a class in my phone. And then you need to tailor your routine also, like, all right, I'm gonna stop using my computer at that time. I'm gonna stop using my phone at 10 p.m. I'm gonna put it away. And making small, again, like baby steps, right? Small steps to having a healthier routine. I think that helps. And again, it's not perfect. There's days you're gonna be like, I'm really inspired and I'm gonna be drawing until 2 a.m. Make that a day, like, or 2 days. Don't make that your...
Every day.
Not every day. Not every day,
Yeah. Yeah, one thing that I noticed that I developed is an act of observing people, observing everything. Because I'm an artist, and for example, sometimes we need to look to a lot of reference, and I didn't had the environment to do that. Like I wasn't on my PC and I was like thinking about art all the time. Oh, I need to improve, I need to improve. Then I started observing things as a way of, getting better at art. And sometimes when I start working in a different place that is not art related, or like with people who don't understand our industry, I always tell them I'm a social awkward. I look at people, I observe people. If I stare at you and you don't know why, it's just because I notice something on your face that I'm thinking is interesting, and somehow I'm thinking about it. So just ignore me. I'm just awkward, okay? And the person smile, and they after living with me like a daily basis, like they understand. Oh yeah, Vicky, it's observing something. What you are observing, and this person has this, or you do that.
Yeah, all the time. And also it depends on like what I'm studying at the moment or what I've been teaching.
Yeah.
So like if I'm studying color, my brain will go like, oh, just observe color, and then you ignore the rest. And if I'm studying like going more to drawing fundamentals, like perspective and stuff, I'm gonna be looking at a building and like really seeing like, oh, the perspective on this side of the building is like there is
Small details.
there's like this really distortion on the building.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that I think that's one of the coolest things, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
you experience life in a different way because
Yes.
art makes you more
Sensitive to.
it makes your
everything.
eye and brain more sensitive to small things that people ignore, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You see a table, you're like, cool, it's a table, it's a glass, okay, it's a glass. You see someone's face, you just see, oh, that's Vicky, that's whatever person, but you don't see like, oh, the highlight is bouncing this way, the
Yeah.
shape is this way, like the form is this way.
Yeah, so for example, this table, let's talk about this table. There are these textures, and the bright of the table is more, how can I say, blur, right? It's soft, it's not that bright. And one thing to control this, let's say a 3D software would be roughness, right? We would reduce the roughness to give this same bright. So usually I'm observing these kind of things. We need to replicate this in a virtual world, right? When we do that for games. And even for people, sometimes I'm looking, something that I found was really interesting when I moved here, because even though Brazil is really mixed, there were a lot of different nationalities that I never saw. That here, there's different nationalities, different details on people's faces, bodies that I never saw in Brazil. Because in Brazil is more like Europeans, native people, right? And there are some other mixes, like in the North Africans, and in the South it's more Europeans. Yeah, in Brazil very mixed, but here it's not only Africans or Europeans, or no, there's a lot of different faces, physiognomies that I never saw. And I remember my first month I was like staring at people on the bus, on the train, like, and people here, they don't do that. They don't look at other people. And I was like, and then because it's so different, like I was so curious, so interesting to see different physiognomy, different, and also the way they dress, the way there are some styles that in Brasilia I never saw. So, and I use this excuse to look at people. I'm an artist. I'm observing you. That's all.
I do that all the time with buildings. Also, like the buildings in the city I'm living, I go to work walking and back every day, and I swear like there is like 2 or 3 buildings that the way the lighting is hitting I
Yes.
stop every time and I'll take a photo, or I'll just keep looking, you know.
Yes.
And it's so also again like another one of these things that are so different, and you're like, oh, that's a cool reference or something I never saw. And because it's new, it's also interesting, right? You're learning something, you're studying, and you're improving your visual library, you're improving like
Yes,
things you can draw
exactly.
on from your.
Once I was on a train and there were a family. Um, they are a father and two kids, but I think they were teenager, around 15, 16 years. And there were the mother. And I look at them and I noticed that the kids were completely like their father. And why? And I observed that some details they had around the eyes, even though they have like the color and characters of the mother, like, but they still were more like the father. And I started to observing these small details. And yeah, like you, since you draw hard surface more, you observe more buildings and things. That I draw more characters, so I observe more people. And I really enjoy looking to families and see how the genetics works, like how it distributes the physiognomy. And sometimes I want to take pictures of some random people I found on train, because for me they look like a villain or they look like a superhero. I don't know, like I imagine different things about people when I look at their face. Well, I remember a guy on the train that he were bold and he were very strong bones, very visible. And I look at him, my God, this guy is a villain. He's a completely villain. And then he were talking with his friend and smile, even though he seemed like a nice person, a good person. Still, when you think in creating characters, you need to uh, do some, details that makes people think that this person probably is a villain or things like that. And this guy, he had the characteristics.
Also, it really goes to that research thing, right? Because sometimes you think you need to come up with something on your own, and that's like I think that's another one of the big mistakes students make. There is not researching enough and not
Yes.
looking for things enough. And if you look for it enough, you're gonna find that really good reference that is like a villain, or that's gonna give you
Yes.
that storytelling thing, right? And it's something that I noticed also moving here, just going to museums and having more of like this culture variety around, having easier access to culture and museums in London or different cities, you see way cooler, or not, let's not say cooler, but you see like other solutions for things that you'd never expect.
Yes.
And that could be, someone in the street that has a villain face, that could be a coat that was made by a different tribe, or a helmet that is made by shellfish or by crab shells.
Yes.
And then you're like, that helmet could be turned into a whole character that is made of crab shapes, or crab shells.
Exactly.
And it's something that it is part of learning, but it's something that also, if you are living, let's say in Brazil, or if you're living in an area that you don't have that much access to different cultural things, you need to research on your own, and you need to be very disciplined about researching for your project, right? And understanding that is the foundation of your learning and the foundation of your project also, right?
Yes.
So let's say I want to draw again a villain. Get the reference of many actors and characters that exist and people that are, unknown, that have these villainy things.
Yeah.
And then you start breaking down like, oh, why is it? Is like a long chin? Is it like the distance between the mouth and the nose? Is it like a tiny mouth and a big nose? Is it a tiny nose or big mouth, And that is, again, if you're talking about the face, you're talking about the small things of design, right? But if you're talking about the big things of design, like the silhouette, how do you make a silhouette look like a villain?
Yes.
And then you can look that on an armor knight. Does this armor knight is more evil or aggressive, or does this armor knight look friendly, right? And you can use those things, like day-to-day things, museum things, reference things, all of that over time. you are giving time to your brain to adapt and see those things, and then you can use either to give feedback to people because you saw that before and you made that connection,
Yes.
or you can apply it to your own art, right? And the time that this takes, the time for your brain to build these connections and to even to learn to analyze these things, it's something that you cannot rush, right? You cannot
Exactly.
force in someone. So like someone that is starting to draw, they have or to model, to learn to use Blender, they have so many more layers of complexity that their brain is dealing with, that they're not gonna be noticing random people in the street, right? They're not gonna be noticing proportions, or if they are, they don't even know how to apply later, right?
Yes.
So if you have the foundation, right, you know the software, you know the tools, you're comfortable with, your hand drawing, you're comfortable with human anatomy, you see that you're like, oh, that chin, the way that skin or the bone is pushing, it makes it look like more like almost like a skull with skin. It's so creepy. You can get that, you can apply in a project, or you can get reference. Someone that is starting, I don't even know how to even draw a normal person, I don't even know how to draw. And then you need to go back, all right, step by step, gonna build on these blocks. And then perspective, all right, I'm gonna look at the person standing in the train. I'm not gonna notice at the small things. I'm gonna imagine that body as boxes. How does that body as boxes stands on the train? There is a cylinder.
Yes.
And then you imagine, all right, I have the cylinder, there's the train. I have this body that is made of 3D forms inside the train. Can I draw, or can I imagine this person in a different position, in a different angle? Can I see that person in the train? Can I draw that person as if I was a bird looking at her head, like, from the top down?
Yes, exactly.
Or can I draw that person, like, can I be on the train looking at that person and imagine I'm laying on the floor, like seeing that person from the bottom up? And then you try to practice those boxes, and then you start modeling and seeing that other things. And then over time it develops to like, oh, I'm seeing that tiny ethnicity, race thing. And then like, oh, the big lips, the small nose, and the personality. Yeah. So you build and build on top of really complex and hard things, right?
Yeah, another thing that is I start to observe a lot when I was really studying art, personality, because sometimes, let's say, you can't judge people on their appearance, right? But there are some ways we move our body, facial expressions that we do, that we can say that this person maybe is a narcissist, or because this person act this way, it made her look like a villain. So one example is that Rapunzel, the movie, the mother of Rapunzel.
I don't remember. I mean, I know the story, the basic story.
And the character, she had a lot of exaggerated movements that resembles narcissists. So the way she expressed, like the way she move her eyes, she's a pretty character, but still with the body communication, they could express that she's a villain, which is more, how can I say, deep into the art when you start observing not only the small details on skin, but also the way people behave. So I want to create a character that has perfect, details on the face, and it seems like a nice person, but this person needs to be a villain, even though I won't follow any like cliches, like points or things like that would make a villain. Then I need to observe behavior. I need to observe, like, research about movies and where the actor need to represent a narcissist. They need to represent someone who committed a crime, and how they usually behave, how they try to hide it, how they look at people when they are like discovering about they being a criminal, and you start to observe these small things and apply this to your art. I think this is more deeper. Yeah.
And even the storytelling thing, it helps so much to run from the archetypes. The archetypes, they are important because they work and they are easy to get, right?
Yes.
And Disney does a lot
A
of
lot.
that, a lot of that, and it does because you're dealing with kids, and then it's even
Yeah,
better.
simple for kids.
Yeah, but it's really cool seeing how those things can be, can create some kind of expectation, and then you subvert it, you change that, and you can create layers of the character. One that comes to mind is Nausicaa from Ghibli, from Miyazaki.
Yes.
I love anime and stuff. That was one of like the big things getting me started into drawing. And if you think of like the characters, like you have those massive, almost like prehistoric creatures that are like these massive shell things, and they are a mix of like insects and sea creatures, and they look really creepy and scary, right? Because they are like triangular, they have tons of shells.
Yes.
They are not your cute pet or your cute dog that you imagine, right? And there is that scene in that movie that one of the baby of these sea creatures, like these seashell creatures, that is being tortured, like one of the things, and you are like, you're so like, you want to protect it because of the storytelling, right?
Yes.
Even though if you show that to a kid, it's gonna be like, oh, it's a sea thing, it's like a mollusk or whatever, like a mussel, right? I don't want to see that. But you see that scene, you're like, oh, I want to help him, like I care about him because it's like this baby thing. And you have all the storytelling of the movie showing you what those creatures are, and the Nausicaa is like protecting them and stuff. And you can use that in other ways. And if you're thinking about storytelling, concept art, or your own IP, you can even have like some freedom to, how can I do that without mudding also, like it's a fine balance, right? You don't want to muddy the story, you don't want to create something that contradicts and then it makes the story worse by not following an archetype. But you can also make these really special things. They're like, oh, I never expect I'll feel that way towards that. Yeah. And then you're like, that makes it really cool. That makes it more iconic than the villain character that has triangle silhouette, right?
Yeah, and one thing that made me notice this, I was watching a documentary. No, actually, it was a palestration of a biologist, and he were trying to save reptiles. But he told that it's really hard to get donations to save reptiles because people have fear of reptiles. So he can't use a picture of a reptile. Even if it's a drawing, a cute drawing, no, people won't donate. So they use pictures of other animals to get the donation to save the reptiles, because the image really affects. And we have some images on our subconscious that it's like survivor things that will made us judge, So, for example, the human beings knows that like a crocodile can kill you, so they won't sympathize that easier. And I think it was a interesting observation, even for a biologist, because he how can I say this? He had to deal with that, trying to save animals, and us as artists, we really need to understand that, how these images, how this is, affects the communication.
There is a book, it's I think 125 Principles of Design, or like universal principles of design, something like that. And they get like, as the title say, universal principles that are interdisciplinary. So they get design principles from like engineering, ergonomics, graphic design. And it's basically a book talking about this, like the subconscious thing that humans have towards life or towards design things, right?
Yes.
So like you adding plants in an environment makes people feel more at ease, because every time we look at something green, we look at vegetation, we imagine, oh, there is water there, there is fruits, there is life. You know,
Yes.
it's probably somewhere safe and I can relax. It's not a desert, right? So, and then we as humans start adding, even if it's fake plants, we put on the environment.
Yes.
Or you have like hospitals, and then they put like big prints of vegetations, or they're gonna put vegetations on frames and paintings, and they use that, you know, in architecture. They use that in whatever things that can influence us as humans to feel a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And then we can see, oh, what can I do that in my art? Like, what can I use if I want to make a peaceful scene or a peaceful environment, or if I want to make a scary one, you know, or if I want to make this character feel that it's trustworthy, or if I want to make him feel like he's a narcissist. Like,
Yes.
what are these cues these human cues that I can start bringing and adding? And it really deepens the storytelling, right? It's really
Yes,
something that adds
exactly.
another layer to the composition, or to everything you're wanting to tell.
Yes. It's so interesting observing these things. But yeah, I think I only got this deep into this because I draw since I was a kid. And yeah, the part of developing the apt and everything was during my teenagers, and my adult phase was focusing on more deep things. And these things, it's years to develop, to start to noticing. And yeah, I think, what's the name of the book?
125 Universal Principles of Design.
Yeah, I think someone who wants to get faster on this kind of observation needs to start with something that already have some substance, because I learned by observation most of the time, you know, and you too, right? You learn alone, yeah. But if you want to get deeper on these kind of things, because I think it's really important for artists.
So you were talking about, like the book is something that really helped, and as you being like self-teaching and learning more from observation, that is also something that I noticed moving here and being more in touch with people that maybe they had better opportunities towards art, right? So you will meet people working in a studio that they did a concept art degree, or they did an illustration degree, and they had that proper formal training, let's say, or classical training, right? So they understand better drawing, they understand better composition, they understand better these design things. How was it to you for you to learn that? And how do you feel like are the next steps for you to improve at that?
I think I always enjoy observing people. When I look back, I noticed that I was always a social awkward, because I always like observing people, observing things around me. One thing that I was so into my imagination that sometimes when I was a kid, I was like, if I try to, you know, like feel the wall. I sometimes did it when I was a kid. I walk onto the streets and I walk like this. And when I was on the beach or on the pool, I was feeling the water, like I was putting my hands on the water just to feel. I don't know. I always were like that. And I really loved drawings, like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon. I grew up watching these channels. And also playing games, Sonic. I had a Mega Drive. And I also started playing Ragnarok Online. When I
played that
yeah.
for way too long.
Yeah, I saw a commercial on cartoon.
Same,
yeah,
same,
yeah.
same.
And then I decided to play, and I don't know. I wanted to create some customized items. I took screenshots and I opened Paint and tried to change like the way the design of the characters look. And then I installed on the PC. I had emulator for Nintendo, and that's where I first started playing Nintendo games. Wasn't for a Nintendo video game, was with emulator. And I take screenshots of the games and edit on Paint. And during the school, I I was a really bad student. I didn't want to watch the classes. I just want to draw. Instead of, giving attention to what the teacher was saying, I was like drawing on my notebook all the time. And then that's why I started improving. Was naturally. When I was with 13 years, I was able to copy photos of people very young. If someone gave me a photo, I could copy it. And then I remember a friend of my mother, she asked for a drawing of Mona Lisa for a presentation. I don't remember, it was a long time ago. And I copied the the painting in a how can I say cartoon? It was a paper, big paper, and I did the Mona Lisa, and it had a lot of success on her presentation, and some people of that my mother worked also started to ask me to draw people they liked. For example, her boss asked me to draw his wife. She had passed away, and he wanted something to different to remember of her. And then they sent me the picture, and I copy, and like he loved it. And I was really young. I had 13 years. And I loved animes. I had a long period watching animes. And I always tried to copy the animes.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
And I think that's how I developed this ability of observing things. Because I was trying to copy cartoons. I was trying to copy games, like editing the games, the screenshots since I was a kid. It was fun for me. Mm-hmm. And on the school, I was remember the things I liked and keep drawing them, I was a huge fan of Evanescence. And I had I forgot, I don't know how to say the name in English, but basically, there's a lot of pages of the things I took to the school. There were drawings of Emily that I did by imagination because I love her so much that I memorize her face and draw her like all over my notebook. Notebook. Mm-hmm. It was like that I learned. And then when I started working, what was the big difference, because I started working really young with 20 years, is that I needed to be more technical. The drawing isn't just for fun or just because I like or because I think it's something with my emotions. I don't know. I noticed that it's more technical. It has a goal. So I needed to change my mentality. Okay, now I need to draw this because it will be applied on that. Was a bit hard to do that, but at least I had this background since childhood, observing things, really enjoying drawing random things, experimenting with paint. I learned Photoshop when I was 12. Really young, yeah.
That's really young.
Yeah, really young. Because I was curious. I was always like that. And I never paying that much attention to the school. That's why I nowadays I understand that much about art.
I see.
How about you?
I'm probably very similar, because I remember I got my first manga, my first Dragon Ball manga comic, Dragon Ball comic thing, when I was 5. I didn't even know how to read and write, and I just asked. I think I was probably with my mom or something. I don't even know how I got that manga or if someone gave it to me. I know that was my first one, like, and I have to this day, like, it's completely destroyed. And I even like wrote my name, or so I think my mom wrote my name like on it later, because it's like years later I would bring it to school, and I was afraid of losing, so it had my name written on it. And I would just like open it and stare at the drawings, and I like that manga was the thing that was like made me realize that I enjoyed drawing, and I enjoyed seeing and looking at the drawings. And I would also like look at like Goku, Gohan on that thing, and because it was not the first one, it was like a completely random volume, so Gohan was there, and I would be drawing Gohan, I would be drawing the dragon like Shenlong, I would be drawing Goku in different poses, completely bad, like kids level of drawing, but I would be picking up, and I have these photos, like I have a post on my Instagram like from some years ago that I found these really old like comic pages that I was doing from imagination, and they are like basically Goku, like Goku in weird fights and weird things, completely like Goku holding a sword and completely like bad things, like bad drawings. But it was how I got started. And then I also saw the same advertisement you saw, but like that made a huge generation of artists in Brazil, I think, like Dragon Ball, and then some kind of game like Ragnarok was the case. And then I would be at school drawing my Ragnarok character from imagination, like wearing the wings, wearing some kind, like imagine like the different like classes you had in the game, like holding a sword. But when I look back, I think I wanted to be a manga artist. Like my first art dream was I want to be a manga artist in Japan, and I was drawing for that. Like
I think I dreamed about that too.
Yeah, I think manga in Brazil made like a huge impact, like I have friends that also had that same dream, like we talk to this day and about that. And I think that's something that would help to storytelling, right? Because it's so storytelling based. And then I think that gave me the passion of like, oh, I want to draw, to tell stories. I want to draw, to make my own comics. I was doing my own comics as a kid and stuff, but in Brazil, with you don't have much hope. I think like you don't see many people that are artists that are doing comic books. If you met someone that worked with comic books or art at that time, I think you're very lucky, because I never met, and my parents never met also, and they were like very conservative about it. Like I even if they don't tell you, you can feel the vibe, or you can see that from other people, like, oh, if you're an artist, you're gonna be starving, or you're gonna be poor, and all of that. And especially because we don't have a proper art illustration school, our game art school, our concept art school in Brazil. So I dropped it, like I think on like 7th grade or 8th grade I dropped it. I completely dropped it, and I only picked back up when I graduated from school. That I was like, no, I really love drawing. Like I am sad when I'm not drawing. Like I feel bad not drawing. Like I feel bad that I stopped drawing. So I'm gonna pick this back up again and see where it goes. And I decided like 2014, cool, I want to give my best to this. Like I'm gonna study this as much as I can and give my best to like this career, to like this concept art career. Again, the frustration comes from wanting that and not having experience, not having that many teachers, not having a proper unit, like not having a classic training, right? I think at the time, like even some years later, like 2016, 2017, I was like, oh, this would be so much easier if I had, some kind of structure to my learning. Because when you are self-teaching, you are like, should I learn anatomy? Should I learn painting, rendering, lighting? Should I learn 3D? Should I learn storytelling? Should I learn composition? Because you don't know anything, right?
Yes.
And everything will help you, but you can definitely waste time. Like if you learn anatomy before learning perspective, your anatomy going to be awful, right?
Yes. Exactly.
Because you can know the name of the muscles, you can know the tendons, you can know the bones, if you don't know how to draw again this cylinder in perspective, how are you going to draw an arm in perspective, right?
Yes.
And that was the main struggle. And then it was like, all right, I need to stop wasting time, like trying to freestyle my learning. I need to like get some proper books. I need to like focus more on watching classes. And I got lucky that in 2014 I met Ursula Dorada. She was like she's a famous like artist.
Yeah,
she works for Blizzard.
Yeah, I love her work.
She's really good and she's a really nice person. Like she's a great teacher. And I got lucky. She was in my city. She was living in my city at the time. And she opened a painting course and I took that painting course. My drawing was pretty bad, but I learned Photoshop with her in 2014 and I learned a bit of painting. And that was the time I realized, all right, my drawing is really bad because I have no foundation. I have no proper drawing training. And she's teaching me painting, but my paintings are going to be awful forever because my drawing is bad.
Yeah, exactly.
And then after that course with her, I was like, all right, I have some painting foundation. I know how to get a jar and paint and make it look like glass. I know how to get an apple and paint, like I can copy something at least to like average level, but my drawing from imagination, my skill, like my anatomy skills, my perspective skill is really bad. So I was like, oh cool, I'm gonna grab some books, I'm gonna start other classes. I did New Master Academy, like it's like a Netflix thing that you pay, and then you have classes from like some Disney animators, some really old master things, and that gave me a bit of like traditional drawing baggage, let's say, to improve on. And it was from there. But to this day I still think I think people here they are really lucky, right? Because
yeah, they are really lucky.
You are living close to the studios. You have a uni that even if it's a bad uni,
they give value to that.
Yeah. Even if you are in a, let's say, bad uni, you are still going to be surrounded by artists.
Yes.
And
exactly.
that in Brazil is another thing that is kind of against us, right? Because you don't have an art community near you. It's different. Like you have an online community.
Yes.
But looking at someone at your side that is also studying, also working hard, that is also doing a sketchbook. When I moved here and I saw my coworkers doing that, I was like, oh my God, finally, I feel so happy. Like I feel so inspired that I see other people doing. And I was like, oh, I wish, at least I have that now. And, but there's always like, oh my God, I wish I would also have that.
Yeah.
And I did have that a bit. Like I did made friends in my city that were also drawing, but it's not that, all right, uni thing that, that you see people. But yeah, that makes a big difference, I think.
Totally. Yeah. For me, I was completely freestyle. I'm not proud of it, but I was really freestyle because I don't know, I have a bit of difficulties when I have to follow a certain step by step. But I tried my best to understand the problems and heard feedback from some of my friends online, of course, because as you say, in person it's really hard to connect it with people who love what we love. And they provide feedback. I think you should improve on this or that. Oh, nice. Okay, I would try my best to improve on that. Yeah, that's true. I would try to improve this. And I found, Felipe Paglioso.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 5 years ago. I don't remember. But for the first time, I wanted to, I need to understand from a professional that is working a long time with illustration and art, what is the problem with my art? And then I paid a mentorship with him, a month mentorship, and he gave me some feedback that I understood everything. Was enough for me. And from that point, I understood what I need to focus. Because for me, I worked more freestyle than doing, if I had to do a class for a year or a university, I think I wouldn't handle, because it's not my style. But it shows that you can improve in both ways. It's better if you have someone to teach you, like in your case that you have Ursula, because you will get better faster. But you can improve freestyle if you are like me that has a bit of problems of following some steps or things like that. You can still improve, but you need to be open to hurt feedback and accept some feedback will hurt. But you need to accept. And yeah, I think it's interesting to see this contrast.
Yeah, definitely. And even having feedback, right? Because I did 2 years of class with her. It was like once a week, every Friday. And because I was so new, some things she would say I would only understand later. Like later studying on my own, like years later, I was like, oh, that was why I was struggling. Yeah. You know, or like she would tell me like, oh, you need drawing. Even she would tell me like that again, this very basic thing, like you need drawing structure to fix this painting that you're doing. Like I was trying to painting a really complex face in perspective, and my structure was all messed up, and she was like, oh, you need perspective to fix this. You need to imagine like simple forms. And my brain, because it was so new and I was trying to deal with all these problems, my brain just ignored it, you know, like it kind of it kind of listened to what it wanted, you know, and like no, ignored it. And then by repetition, by trying, by seeing it doesn't work, I'm like, okay, fuck, I need to go back to drawing. I need to go back to, you know, proper fundamentals and focus on that. And then after that course finished, it became this like this self thing, like the self-teaching, and then trying to organize, trying to make my own curriculum, right? And it's really good. Like the bright side is that with internet and stuff, we do have mentorships.
Yes.
We do have the option like
to talk with these people.
Talk with people that are very distant. So yeah, we don't see people nearby like we would in a uni, but at least like the very good thing is this, you know, like the online thing, the online classes, online content in YouTube, podcasts, like you see other people's experience, right? And putting the effort in the end, art, it's time and consistency, right? Like as any other skill. And you could have the best teacher, you could be in the most expensive like art center, uni, or Fengzhu, or whatever 3D course, and if you're not putting the time and passion and consistency, you won't improve.
Yes.
So
yes. Well, I think now you can finish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to first say thank you for being here, to accept the invite to talk on the first podcast, first episode. So yeah, I hope we can talk again.
Yes, thank you, Vicky. Thank you, everyone that watched and listened. Hope to see you soon, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.